Today on Vital Insights.
And I think that's really the key of where we take this in the future, is to continue to improve the ability to extract these key insights that the caregiver needs to be proactive.
Welcome to an episode of Vital Insights, a podcast series focused on thought leaders and healthcare providers who are working to transform the way we care for patients, now and in the future. So Terry, in a previous episode of Vital Insights, we talked about the standardization of data and why it's important for healthcare providers to be able to use in patient care. Today, I want to talk about the concept of gold standards in care and which ones healthcare providers should lean into in assessing a vendor's capability to deliver a solution that's grounded in validity. So for purposes of just kind of framing out this conversation, can you quickly provide a summary of what a gold standard is in healthcare?
I think in general, the concept of gold standard is for any given, measurement, whether it's a vital sign or imaging or whatever, there's always something that you're measuring it against. So,
right.
It's typically something that's been rigorously validated and tested and has become kind of the standard of practice. And that, translates to, the regulatory environment where it's the standard by which, say, the FDA would, want to see any device or new technology validated against.
Right, yeah.
And, so deep testing against the gold standard on a like-for-like basis is really kind of the threshold that one has to pass to get through it. And that's really where it's come from.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. So if we shift and look specifically now at remote patient monitoring solutions, what impacts their ability to be effective tools in long-term care? What are the critical vital sign measurements that we need to measure against those gold standards?
Well, I think, traditionally it's, in remote patient monitoring, it's often been built around the, key maybe 4 vital signs of heart rate, respiratory rate, blood pressure, and weight.
Okay.
And, and those are typically, rigidly validated against. Now, there's other important biometrics that also have to be, compared against a gold standard, like blood oxygenation or blood glucose, et cetera, depending on the condition. But those 4 are probably the most used.
So let's talk about each one of those and their individual gold standards. We can start with blood pressure, for example.
Yeah, I think traditionally blood pressure, the gold standard was always a mercury-based, if I can pronounce it, sphygmomanometer.
I don't think anyone can pronounce
that. But anyway, but because of concerns about mercury, that's been less and less used globally, and really ambulatory blood pressure monitor has been kind of the new gold standard that that people are measuring their devices against, and that understanding. Now, that's not without some contradictions, but that's really the new gold standard for blood pressure.
Okay. What about heart rate?
Really EKG.
Okay.
And
that makes sense.
Is really the gold standard.
Respiratory rate?
End-tidal CO2. So basically capnography.
Okay.
Yeah, which is really just measuring the efficiency of, of the respiratory cycle. That's the new gold standard.
Interesting. And what about weight?
Well, I think with weight, it's really just a calibrated weight scale, pretty basic.
That is very basic. And then there's that new trending vital sign, sleep. Talk a little bit about the gold standards there.
Yeah, and I think that, it's critical because, there's a lot of elements of sleep, but the fundamental gold standard still for sleep is polysomnography, or PSG, which is used in a sleep study, which is a fairly long,
I can imagine.
Process.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of elements in sleep, and that kind of includes all of them in that study, hence the poly part of that.
So we know that sleep is new. That's a new vital sign. What do you see on the future of other things that we might want to collect and then apply gold standards to?
Well, I think, the vision of early sense, as we've talked about, is about passive continuous monitoring, and then using machine intelligence to be able to detect subtle changes in key vital signs and biometrics, and then do something with that information. I think a couple key pieces of understanding what that really means is, when we talk about continuous, we're not alluding to active real-time monitoring. What we're really talking about is changing the game when it comes to temporal resolution. By that I mean, if you look at traditional remote patient monitoring, you're taking the sample once a day, maybe twice a day, or
it's a
couple
snapshot.
times a day. And our technology takes a snapshot every minute. And so you're gathering a huge amount of data. And in a typical remote patient monitoring scenario, you could miss a lot with one data point a day. If that data point happens to be wrong or an outlier, or think it's an outlier, and then you get the next one, you could be 36, 72 hours before you really realize that something, that you're in a situation where the patient's deteriorating. And that's really the key advantage of this on top of compliance, is this temporal resolution. And of course, that comes with a price, and that price is the sheer amount of data. But hence the focus of early sense on using machine intelligence to be able to continuously scan that data and ensure that the caregiver only gets the information that's meaningful to them. And I think that's really the key of where we take this in the future, is to continue to improve the ability to extract these key insights that the caregiver needs to be proactive.
That's excellent. And I love that you drew the line between the now and the then. That's fantastic. Anything else you'd like to add about gold standards?
Well, I think, first and foremost, the data that we're gathering is all validated against the gold standard. So, our heart rate, respiratory rate is, as well as our sleep studies is validated against PSG, and heart rate and respiratory rate are validated against the gold standard. So the data that's going into this continuous analysis is all measured against the gold standard already.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you explaining that to us and our listeners, and thank you for coming on the show once again.